morning, friends! So I've been wanting to do this video for a long time and I've been talking about it for like months, but since we are officially at our 2-year mark of doing YouTube, I just wanted to reiterate, do a new video about just Norrie disease, what that means, and how we got started with it and our adventure starting when I was pregnant into the first couple months of Jensen's life. Good job, dude! Where you going? You gonna climb up? All right, let's get started. Mommy found out she was pregnant in November of 2019. Major surprise for us, but we were very excited. I've had questions on whether or not we knew that he had Norrie disease when I was pregnant. We did not. Fast forward, we had our 20-week screening, and a week later, everything shut down for the pandemic, and that was just a whole nother to-do. I worked in the hospital setting. I worked, good job, feet first. I worked on COVID patients, and I was scared on how that would affect my pregnancy, blah, blah, blah. I already knew too much going into things with ultrasound, which is a love-hate relationship, so I was very nervous throughout my pregnancy, and I just wish I would have enjoyed it more than I did. Otherwise, Jensen did measure like pretty small throughout the pregnancy, and his fluid was a little low. Otherwise, we didn't have any complications. And at 38 weeks, one day I went into work. At the end of the day, I went to go to my OB appointment, and we didn't leave. We decided to induce labor. The very next day, I had little man at 5 pounds, 11 ounces. We got to have a normal first night, and that was great. And then the next day is when, hi Jensen, our pediatrician came in, looked Jensen over. They decided like his bilirubin levels were low, so he had to do the phototherapy light. That was really rough. With the pandemic, things were kind of screwed up, and it wasn't very warm, and he just cried throughout the night, so that was not a great experience. The next day, our pediatrician again came in, kind of looked at Jensen's eyes. He noticed something wasn't right. He had another pediatrician that was in-house look him over. That is when she also discovered, aside from the eyes, that he had a heart murmur, and we found out he had holes in his heart. We had other testing, just the normal exams of hearing tests and stuff. The car seat challenge because he was too small to be cleared to go into a car seat, making sure he had enough oxygen. We did all that, as well as an ultrasound on his heart. As soon as we got discharged, we went right to an ophthalmology appointment. Once we got to that ophthalmology appointment, that was the first time that they gave Jensen some eye drops, some numbing drops, and then they clamped his eyelids open and tried to get a good look in there. And they were using terminology, so I was like really trying to tune in what they were saying. All I remember hearing is bilateral, which means both, and hemorrhages, so bleeding. Then they were telling us we were going to be going to the children's hospital, and when I heard that and that we were going to be going the very next day, I knew they were fast tracking us, and that's obviously not a good sign either. So Josh just tried to help me and just said, you know, let's just take our baby boy home and try to have a normal experience, which is obviously super hard when you just went through this series of trauma. I mean, it's truly trauma. Everyone has different experiences and different levels of trauma, but that was traumatic. Wow, I didn't think I was gonna get emotional, but like, we, you know, came home and Jensen's got the selfie stick. I am so glad I have him because every time I get like teary-eyed, he's like, you're doing something to make mama laugh. That's good. I appreciate that. You're the best. You're a wiggle worm. I'm so happy you're feeling a little bit better here after lunch. I remember so clearly going into that day of the children's hospital. It was bright and early, beautiful July day. Sky was blue, no clouds in sight, and just kind of feeling like I was preparing for the worst. With the pandemic, I had to wait in the car. Josh took Jensen in. I waited it for hours. I'm trying to do the short versions here, but they couldn't tell us he was blind because they just can't say that. They don't know. We can't communicate with a, you know, 5-day-old. We then got set up for a surgeon in a bigger city, and this was all happening on Friday, and that was scheduled for Monday. So I'm gonna pause real quick and come in here and say, what is Norrie disease? What is Norrie disease, Jens? Norrie disease is an inherited, rare, X-linked chromosomal disease that is defined as blindness in male infants at birth or shortly after. It has to do with the retina of the eye. Both of Jensen's retinas were basically detached at this point and bleeding. With the disease, it's a broad spectrum of what could go wrong. He could just be blind, or typically they lose their hearing in their adolescence, usually teenage years, as soon as 3 years old. You know, it's the reality we live in, but we're gonna be okay. And then just other spectrums of like disabilities and learning abilities and just that stuff. It's not a bad thing. You're doing pretty dang good, aren't you? Yeah, you're walking. Oh. Who cares about those spectrums? Milestones. We don't care. DD, you feel warm. You just working hard over here? What time is it? Let's get Jensen in for his nap. Yes, we all know Jensen had his concussion, right? Okay, well, with that, we had to like even more baby-proof Jensen's room, even more toddler-proof Jensen's room. So he has a cool fort now. At first I was a little sad about it because I'm like, we shouldn't have to do this, but you know, here we are. You gonna take a nap? Oh, get a good nap. Yeah, you love your bed? Music on for you. Okay, Jens. Try to get a nap in, okay? Love you. Any reason, so where did we leave off? Eye surgeon, eye drops, clamping the eyes open, and so my filming cut out and whatever, so I don't know what happened. I'm just incidentally wearing this little plaid cover up again, but Jensen is asleep right now from nighttime, so he'll be getting up any moment now. So I'm just gonna try to finish what I was talking about. We left off at the surgeon. Basically, we drove that 2.5 to 3 hours to the surgeon. We were there, they had to put eye drops in. You let them sit for like 20 minutes, and then you put another eye drop in, and then you do numbing drops, and then they clamp the eyes open and hold them down. And this surgeon kind of pegged it for Norrie disease pretty early on, but like he can't say for sure, of course. He had seen a couple different Norrie disease cases, one being from like Germany, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, he looks at the eyes, he's like, we have to have surgery tomorrow. That's gonna be your best chance of saving some type of vision, whether that be light perception or seeing shapes and shadows. So he's like, this is what we're gonna do. You need to go home, you need to be cleared by your pediatrician that he is strong enough to have this surgery and that the holes in his heart aren't gonna complicate things. And then you're gonna come back tomorrow for his eye surgery. Be on the lookout for calls from the local hospital here in the city for what time he will be checked in for his surgery. Pretty sure this appointment took place at probably like 8 a.m. So we had to get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning and drive the 2.5 to 3 hours. But meanwhile, like Jensen's still not even a week old. So we had to like stop at least once anytime we were driving to the city because we had to change him and feed him. Also, we would try to get there a little early because by the time we would get to the appointment, we would try to change him, feed him. I would be pumping in the back seat right before we would get to the appointment so that we would have fresh milk for him. And this is when I'm like, thank goodness that we had a July baby, because I mean, we had to do this just in our car typically. So we'd pull over, pop the trunk up, and like sit in the back with him as we changed him and fed him his bottle or whatever. I've gotten pretty good at diaper changes in the trunk. Diaper changes, pumping, packing food. Thankfully it's summer. Soon this is gonna be terrible in the winter. Yay! Anyway, it was probably between 1 and 2 in the afternoon when we were trying to drive back the 2.5 to 3 hours home with the stopping to feed him. It was just the most hectic experience. You're sitting still driving and trying to take in everything, like not only the emotion of your little 5-pound baby that has heart condition being put under anesthesia, but also you're getting phone calls from the city hospital trying to go through just medical questions.
Some great news, so we can actually put you at 1:30 tomorrow, okay?
For the surgery?
No, I mean, it's 1:30 for the 22nd. Sorry about that.
22nd at 1:30?
So the post-op exam.
Yep.
For the actual surgery time, I'm going to call you back and give you the actual time for that. Lutheran will be giving you a call as well once I settle that with them. And then everything should be fine from there, okay?
Yep. Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So the history and physical forms are actually sent to the pediatrician as well that you're going to see. So those should go smoothly as well. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
And then you're trying not to block up the phone because you also need them to call you about what time surgery is going to be tomorrow. The hospital's asking for Social Security. He doesn't have it yet. I mean, he's a couple days old. They're asking for his insurance. He's not even under our insurance yet. So then we're calling insurance. Insurance is saying even with an emergent request, it takes 24 hours. Well, his surgery is going to be in less than 24 hours. Just balancing these phone calls, also calling our local pediatrician, trying to get him in to be seen so he can be cleared, making sure the pediatrician's office puts in an order for the local hospital for Jensen's labs to be drawn. And it was madness. Also calling my parents to let them know what's going on. We need a place to stay because after Jensen has his surgery, we have to stay a night because he's gonna have to have post-op to look at his eyes before we go back home. So just trying to communicate with all these different people and making sure our telephone lines aren't tied up and that we don't miss a certain call. Even though you're physically sitting there, my mind was every which way. So as soon as we get into town, we went straight to our local hospital so that Jensen could get his labs drawn. From there, we went to our pediatrician's office down the road. They gave Jensen the all clear for surgery. However, his bilirubin labs still were very elevated. So they're like, you need to go back to the local hospital so he can be put under the phototherapy light before surgery. Just as long as he can possibly be under there, you need to do it. So we rush back to the hospital. At this point, it's probably 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. My mom meets me there. Josh decides to go back home so he can get some sleep. And we still haven't heard back from the hospital about what time Jensen's surgery is. We probably got settled into our room in the pediatric unit at around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Just before 8 p.m., we got the phone call from the surgery center in the city saying what time his surgery was. And it was gonna be like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and that meant we had to be there even earlier to get checked in. But what that meant is that we had to be discharged from our local hospital at 2 a.m. so that we could get there in time with, you know, how we have to stop for Jensen's feedings and stuff like that. Thank goodness our nurses at the pediatric unit were amazing because she's like, you guys just sleep. I'll take care of him. I'll feed him and change his diaper. And he was in a phototherapy light that was actually covered, so it kept him warm. I was expecting a horrible sleepless night like we'd had the first couple times with the phototherapy light after birth. We get discharged at 2 in the morning. We drive to the city hospital and only one parent is allowed in for his surgery due to the pandemic. So Josh went in with him. I went with my mom to my aunt and uncle's house where I was able to get a little bit of sleep. Jensen's surgeries were estimated, I don't even remember, but we'll just say maybe 2 hours per each eye. I don't even think it was that, but it ended up being like 6 hours total. During this time, I'm texting Josh, not trying to overwhelm him, but I'm texting him like asking for updates and I don't hear anything. I'm starting to get frantic and Josh finally says he's out of surgery and then I don't hear anything for an hour and I'm freaking out. They had terrible reception, which later I came to find out when I went back there with Jensen a different time. I had a heart attack. I mean, I thought he came out of surgery and then like something happened to him and that's why I wasn't hearing from Josh. Anyway, we went to go pick them up and Jensen was yellow. I've never seen someone so yellow. And I was like, they didn't say anything about this in there. And he's like, the lighting was bad, which later I would come to find out, yes, is true. I was like, how was the lighting bad? We get him home. His post-care instructions was to hold him face down for 24/7, and that was gonna be for 2 months so that the glue they put to his retina would stick and stay adhesive. For 2 months we did shifts. I did not want to put my newborn baby on his face, so we had family stay with us. We would hold Jensen face down for 2 hours at a time and swap people out. Anyway, we stay at my aunt and uncle's house. We go back for his post-op and they take off his little eye shield and we're cleared to do the face down. So that was his first week of life and I skipped out on so many details because this video would have been excessively long. It's already gonna be long, but it really would have been long if I went into detail. So let's kind of fast forward. We had gone back and forth to the city surgeon for the next 5 months. And throughout these months, we cycled through back to the city surgeon. We'd go in on Monday and he's like, let's go and have another exam under anesthesia tomorrow. So we definitely learned to just pack an overnight bag and we would go to our Monday appointment and call my aunt and uncle and say, hey, is it okay if we stay the night? He's got surgery tomorrow. I think we probably went through that about 4 or 5 times for sure. And at this point, his last city surgeon appointment was when he was about 5 months old. The surgeon, he could tell that Jensen's right eye was shrinking. And not till a year later did we actually physically start to see. However, from that point, both his eyes started to shrink very quickly. So it's just amazing that he was able to see that way back a year ahead. He pegged the Norrie disease and he pegged which eye was shrinking quicker. We continued to follow up on his heart, which that just always kind of seemed on the back burner, so I wasn't too concerned about it because since they were prioritizing his eyes over his heart, I was like, okay, I think we're okay. So then we got scheduled for his genetic counseling at about 2 months old. They went through the different options of what his blindness could be from, and they said Norrie disease was the least likely and the most severe of the options. They drew Jensen's blood. We got his results back about 6 to 8 weeks later. I was at work and took the phone call, and I was just sitting there trying to write down all of this information she was giving me and processing that unfortunately Jensen was diagnosed with Norrie disease. Being alone for that was really hard because you're trying to take in that information, and I'm trying to relay it properly to Josh and family while also processing it. So we get scheduled to see the genetic counseling in person so that we can go over everything again in more detail. And at this point, we decide to then test my blood to see where it came from, because it's either going to come from me or it would have been a spontaneous mutation in Jensen's genes. That took another 2 months for it to come back for me, and yes, I am the carrier, which that is a whole other avenue of how that works. But basically, I have a 50-50 chance of spreading this mutation onto any offspring that I have. Girls being the carriers, boys being the ones that possess the symptoms. Meanwhile, then throughout these months, his first few months of life, Jensen really never opened his eyes. I honestly never saw Jensen's eyes. I would get so excited when he would like kind of squint them open. He would react. He'd kind of squint his eyes when he'd walk past a very sunny window or turn his lamp on when we were changing his diaper. But it got to where it was less and less, and we would shine lights in Jensen's eyes and there would be no reaction. And I think I started to accept things a lot quicker than Josh. I think he was just in a much more denial space, because Josh would sit there shining his phone light at Jensen's eyes, and it just like broke my heart, because I'm like, please stop doing it. Stop doing it in front of me. I couldn't handle seeing him do that and having no reaction from Jensen. So there's so many different avenues that I'm going, but when Jensen turned about 2 or 3 months old, we started his therapies, his physical therapy, his occupational therapy, different people from our area education agency, but all of that was via Zoom because of the pandemic. So not until Jensen was about 9 months old did we start to slowly incorporate in person, getting to see his therapist hands-on with him, and then being able to show us how to do it properly. It made a world of difference being able to be in person and having Jensen's therapies. I was just very proactive. I don't know what it was, but like I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to figure out what we were doing. Like I was already wanting to know about schools. I mean, like we have years for that, but I had to keep my mind busy. How is this gonna look for us? What's our reality here? I didn't even remember this because I was like, how did we even get started with the area education agency for all these therapies for Jensen? And Josh was like, well, you called the blind school in a different state, and this lady was wonderful, and she was just giving me all these tips and all this information of just what to do with a blind baby in general, like how can you help stimulate any vision that they might have. And she was able to tell us about their program, and she's like, I'm sure your city has something similar, and that was like 0 to 3 age, and that's exactly what it was. So I ended up calling the school board, apparently my local school board. I legitimately don't remember doing that, and that's how we got started with the area education agency. So if you don't know what to do, I'd advise you to either talk to your pediatrician's office, see what they have to offer, or call your school board and see what they have to offer for your kiddo, because this is all free for us from 0 to 3. All right, guys, again, that was like all over the map, but it was such a freaking hectic time, and it just was nonstop go, go, go. That was the very limited version of Jensen's first week of life into the first couple months of his life and what we went through. There are so many more details that A, could make it funnier of an experience, or B, scarier of an experience, but that was the bare minimum of me summing it up. So sorry, I know I rambled, but I mean, that was me cutting it short. So please continue to like, subscribe, comment below, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all of the amazing things. We love you guys so much. Thank you. Oh my
Who's in here kicking? Who's in here kicking?
Good job, Jensen. Yay! Move over the bed. What are you doing?
Good job, Jens.
Come on.